You're watching UFC 251 preview and predictions with the MMA Nostradamus. We're going to go from top to bottom. This is a casual viewer's wet dream. 3 title fights: Kamaru, Usman, Masvidal, Volkanovski, Holloway, and Petr, Aldo. Doesn't get any more stacked than that. Thank you, Masvidal, for stepping in on 1 week's notice. We appreciate it. You just made the main event that much more exciting. Right on, guys. So we'll kick things off in the early prelims in the bantamweight division. We have Martin, the Spartan Day, taking on Davey, Dangerous Grant. We'll start off with Martin Day. He's 8-3 MMA, 0-1 in the UFC. He's 31 years old, 5'10", with a 73.5-inch reach. This guy is tall for the bantamweight division. Unfortunately, he's coming off a 2-year layoff. His last fight was a loss against Pingwan Liu. What Martin Day does well, he leads with the jab. He has a nice straight right that did drop Liu. He also has nice front kicks to the body, spinning body kicks. He has decent takedown defense, and he can show submission threats on the ground. What Martin Day needs to work on, he doesn't show much urgency to ground and pound when he's on top. He doesn't have strong top control when he's on top of his opponents. He got dropped by a straight right from Liu, so he can get hit as the fight progresses. Let's take a look at Davey Grant. He is 10-4 MMA, 2-3 in the UFC. He is 34 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach. Davey Grant has been inactive. He's fought 5 times in 7 years. Coming off a decision win over Gregory Popov, and before that a submission loss to Manny Bermudez, who's no longer in the UFC. What Davey Grant does well, he establishes octagon control early. He is very aggressive, uses front kicks to the body, decent at catching kicks to set up takedowns, has decent trip takedowns, shows decent ground and pound, and enjoys staying in top control. He also shows that he has alright cardio. What he needs to work on, due to his aggressive fighting style, he tends to slow down by the 3rd round. He keeps his hands real low, which makes him susceptible to getting tagged. Bermudez tagged him and dropped him. He's susceptible to submissions. Popov was threatening with the Kimura, and as you all know, Bermudez slept him. One red flag that speaks out to me, he switched gyms and now trains at his own gym. So that's something to look out for. And on top of that, just his lack of activity in the octagon. So my prediction overall for this fight, this is a closer fight than people think, in my opinion. Grant will be most dangerous in the 1st round, establishing constant aggressive pressure, looking for takedowns. But I see, Day weathering the early storm, finding success later, landing his shots on a hands-down low Grant, or reversing position on the ground and threatening for a sub. I believe this is the best Grant we will see, And on the other hand, I believe Day is only improving from here on out. I'm going to side with Martin Day in this one. Let's take a look at what you guys think on Tapology. We see 66% of you going for Martin Day and 34% of you going for Grant. And the line, we have -170 Martin Day, -180, -175. Davey Grant +150, +143, +150. The line, it's near about right. I would put Martin Day around -150, but that's fine too. I'm going to slide with Day. It's going to be a close fight. All right. So next up, we have Carol Rosa taking on Vanessa, Miss Simpatia Mello. We'll start with Vanessa Mello. She is 10-7 MMA, 0-2 UFC, 32 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. Right off the bat, I look at her losses, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. She's lost to Irene Aldana, who is a top contender, and Tracy Cortez, who's a upper-comer. But Mello does know that she needs a win here. What she does well at, she establishes octagon control early and likes to keep the pressure. She shows durability and heart in her fights and doesn't back down or give up. In the fight against Aldana, she kept on moving forward and trying to land despite her getting beat up on the feet. In the Cortez fight, she was defending those early takedowns and showing toughness while getting ground and pounded in top position. What she does need to work on, you can definitely telegraph her shots. Her overhand rights and hooks come out very slow, and she also doesn't seem to have an answer if she's being controlled on the mat. Now, Karol Rosa, she's 12-3 MMA, 1-0 in the UFC. She's 25 years old. She's 5'5" with a 67.5-inch reach. Right off the bat, I see she's coming off a 1-year layoff. What she does well, she uses her combos well, throwing the 1-2 and following up with the leg kick. She's quick on the feet, moves well, and doesn't back up against the cage. What she needs to work on, like I mentioned above, she has a nice combo, but the only problem is that's her only combo that she uses, the 1-2 and the leg kick. She's okay with trading shot for shot. She was getting tagged by her last opponent, Laura Prosopio. My prediction for this fight, overall Rosa has it going for her. She's the younger, improving fighter, has the crisper, cleaner striking, and is riding momentum after 3 consecutive wins. Speaking of wins, both fighters have victories over very low-level competition. The only thing that stands out is that Melo knows she needs a win, and her level of opposition has been far superior to Rosa's. This is definitely a step down from Aldana and Cortez, and she held her own in those fights. I see this fight playing out very closer than the line suggests. And if Melo can recognize Rosa's only combo attack, she may be able to weasel her way out of this one. So I'm going to take Melo for the upset. On Tapology, you guys have Rosa at 89% and Vanessa Melo at 11%. Whew, it's a lot closer than that, guys. I think you're looking at the records, but it's really just, it's more about tape study and how they looked against their previous opponents. And let's take a look at that line here. Karol Rosa is -240, -232, -235, and Melo +200, +180, +206. Holy cow. I think that line should be closer. I think that's a dogger pass situation. You cannot bet a 1-0 fighter in the UFC who's faced low-level competition at -240 odds. Get out of here with that. So my prediction, I'm taking Melo for the upset. All right. So we are headlining the prelims. We've got, where am I at? Oops, I'm on the wrong fight here. There we go. Zalgas Zako Zumalugov versus Raulian Paiva in the flyweight division. I can't pronounce this guy's last name, so I'm just going to call him Zalgas. He's 13-3 MMA. He's making his UFC debut. 31 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. The first thing I notice is that he's making his UFC debut. We know that a majority of fighters lose their debuts. When I was watching tape on this guy, he's on a 4-fight win streak, but in my opinion, I think he should be 2-2 or even 1-3. He has a nice decision win over former title challenger Ali Bogatimov. I'll give him that. But prior to that, he should have lost to a guy named Tajin, another guy that I can't pronounce his last name. And his fight with Tyson Nam, it could have gone either way. What Zalgas does well, he throws powerful, wide-ranging hooks. He stays busy in the clinch, firing uppercuts, keeps a strong pace. He has gone 5 rounds without much issue, has a good chin, threatens with submissions on the ground, and stays busy in top control. He also has a decent get-up game. What he needs to work on, Zalgas can be taken down and controlled. Ali and Tajin both showed this. When he throws his powerful shots, he leaves himself open to getting countered. He also struggles to land clean shots against taller fighters, and he has some tendencies to look a little bit stiff. Overall, I wasn't too impressed what I saw from Zalgas. Let's take a look at Raulian Paiva. He's 19-3 MMA, 2-2 in the UFC, 24 years old. He's still improving, 5'8", with a 69.5-inch reach. The first thing I noticed that he's the much younger guy and has a nice reach advantage. Paiva is also the much taller man, which can pose problems for Zalgas. His losses were to better opposition in Rogerio Bontorin and Kai Kara France, both in the top 10. Also, Paiva has been the more active of the two. So what Paiva does well, he keeps calm and relaxed in all of his fights, regardless of how the fight is going. He shows solid power in his right hand, as he did knock out cold Mark De La Rosa, and he made Kai Kara France back up several times. Paiva has a decent get-up game after being taken down, and he also shows decent takedowns of his own. What Paiva needs to work on, he has tendencies of getting hit clean because he keeps his hands kind of low. And when he does, he shoots for takedowns, which is sort of an indication in his fights that he's uncomfortable standing with you. He looks to be somewhat of a slow starter, but his pace and output definitely picks up in rounds 2 and 3. It would have been interesting to see how the fight against Bontorin would have played out if he didn't get the cut and the doctors didn't stop the fight. So in my prediction, I see Paiva starting out slow but picking up the pace in rounds 2 and 3. I don't see this fight getting stopped. I see it going to a decision. I can also see Zalgas struggling to land his shots against the taller Paiva. And if Zalgas gets takedowns, I see Paiva holding his own on the ground and finding his way back up to the feet and potentially scoring one of his own takedowns. Zalgas will have the upper hand in round 1, but I expect Paiva to pick up the tempo in rounds 2 and 3 and snag a win. So my pick is going to be Raulian Paiva. All right, so you guys on Tapology think 52% say Zumagulov and 48% say Paiva. And let's take a look at the line. Raulian Paiva minus 175, minus 190, minus 185. Zalgas plus 155, plus 150, plus 150. So I like that line for Paiva. You know, if you can get it somewhere like 160, 150, that's a nice straight bet. But Paiva, I see him having success, and I see Zalgas struggling to get to him. So I'm going to have to pick Paiva here. All right, we're moving on to some heavyweight big boys as Marcin Tybura versus Maximus Grishin. Now, I'm not sure why the UFC website didn't update this. Alexander Romanov is not the opponent from Marcin Tybura. He is being replaced on short notice by a light heavyweight named Maxim Grishin. Anyways, we'll start with Tybura. He's 18-6 MMA, 5-5 in the UFC. He's 34 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Tybura is a top 15 heavyweight, but he is 2-4 in his last 6 with a pair of knockout losses. Tybura does well against fighters outside the top 15, like Andrei Arlovski, Stefan Struve, and most recently Sergey Spivak. Those wins are, they're meh, but they are decent wins to have on your record. His losses are to pretty good competition like Augusto Sakai, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Derek Lewis, and Fabricio Werdum. What Tybura does well, he has a decent jab. He shows heart when he gets hurt. When Derek Lewis had a good, nice straight on him and dropped him, Tybura hung in there. He shows a level of comfort on the ground, and I think that's where his A game is. He establishes good top control, and he mixes in decent takedowns. He also has decent takedown defense of his own. Tybura moves well, circles the cage, and utilizes a little bit of head movement. What he needs to work on, the guy gets hit. He keeps his hands low, which allows his opponents to land straights and uppercuts. Tybura throws low volume, whether he's standing or on the ground. And his chin is probably in question now after taking numerous knockouts from Lewis, Shamil, and Sakai. All right, let's take a look at his opponent, Maxim Grishin. He is 37-2. He's making his UFC debut on short notice. He's 36 years old. He's 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. Now, like I said before, Grishin is moving up a weight class from light heavyweight, and he is taking this fight on short notice. You have to take that into account. We don't know if his power will carry on over or how his cardio will look. What he does well, Grishin is quick. He shows power in his hands and has a decent get-up game. What he needs to work on, Grishin has gotten dropped previously before by light heavyweights, specifically Jordan Johnson. He has also been taken down on multiple occasions by Jordan Johnson. Grishin looked to be, the more aggressive fighter in his earlier fights, but that was 6 years ago. Lately, in his most recent footage that I've seen, he kind of slowed down a bit. He's 36 now. My prediction for this fight, overall, I was not impressed from what I saw from Grishin. He struggled to overpower smaller fighters than Tybura, and he just isn't quite the explosive fighter he once was. I'm not ruling out the possibility of him catching Tybura. He can do that. But I see him struggling against the bigger and heavier Tybura. Tybura will look for the takedowns and will try to tire out Grishin. Tybura has fought the much better opposition, and while his wins aren't anything to write home about, Grishin's wins are far worse. Give me Tybura. Let's take a look at what you guys think. 52% of you say Tybura, 48% say Grishin. Let's take a look at the line here. Where are you? There we go. So it's pretty even. Minus 105, minus 110, minus 115, minus 110. So it's pretty even on the board. This is, if you're taking a shot on Tybura, I like that line. I think you're looking at the fact that he's been knocked out, and that Grishin may be faster, and you're looking at old footage, and his record is a lot better. But you got to go with the vet. You got to go with the guy that's been there, who's bigger. And if he takes down Grishin, I don't see Grishin getting back up. So Tybura is my pick. All right. So we are transitioning to the prelims. We have Leonardo Santos versus Roman Bogatov. Leonardo Santos, he's 16-4-1 MMA, 6-0-1 in the UFC. He's 40 years old he's 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. What stood out to me was the fact that Santos is so inactive, right? He only fought twice in 4 years. His best wins are to guys who will probably beat him today, like Kevin Lee and Rocco Martin. But his most recent KO last year was over Stevie Ray, and that was pretty impressive. On a good note, Santos trains with Aldo, and he's also fighting on this card. I don't believe the layoffs affect Santos too much. So him being, coming off a 1-year layoff, I don't think that will faze him. What Santos does well, the guy is just overall good everywhere. He has powerful stand-up game. He throws strong body kicks, strong low kicks. He has good front kicks to the body, and he carries power in his hands. He's also a threat on the mat. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He uses his length and jab well to get out of his opponent's striking range. Santos keeps his left hand low to throw the jab and his right hand up high. He waits for his opponents to throw before blasting his right hand. Santos also shows solid takedown defense. What Santos needs to work on, he can get a little sloppy as the fight tends to go later on, like in the third round. He can also be controlled by stronger opponents on the mat. He was kind of getting controlled by Rocco Martin, and we know Rocco Martin is a big guy, and he's at 170 now. Santos can also be countered when his right hand isn't up defending. Let's take a look at Roman Bogatov. He's 10-0 MMA. He's making his UFC debut. He's 29 years old, 5'7", and his reach, isn't listed. I don't see it anywhere here. Bogatov is the current M1 global lightweight champ. He trains with fighters like Damir Ismagulov. He has wins over decent competition in M1. Bogatov himself is coming off a year layoff as well. What Bogatov does well, he's an aggressive starter. He does everything he can do to get the takedown. And when he does establish the takedown, he has heavy ground and pound. He uses his relentless pressure on the ground to transitions to some subs. If you're betting on this guy, I'll tell you, he'll fight for your money. What he needs to work on. After watching tape, this guy is just sloppy. He gets tagged in striking exchanges, and his constant pressure works well, usually when his opponents are kind of already exhausted. My prediction, I feel this is a tough matchup for Bogatov. You have to disregard Santos being 40. That hasn't stopped him from looking like a complete beast in his last fight. Bogatov's style will get him into trouble with Santos. Santos has the size and BJJ to catch Bogatov's sloppiness on the ground. And on the feet, Santos carries the better striking and power. I see Santos forcing Bogatov to shoot ugly takedowns like he normally does and exposing him on the feet or on the mat. Give me Santos for the win. All right, so you guys on Tapology, you have 74% for Santos and 26% for Bogatov. You guys know what's up. Let's take a look at the line. Leonardo Santos is minus 175, minus 190, minus 185. Roman Bogatov plus 155, plus 150, plus 160. That line's awesome, and I think it's a juicy line worth betting on. I think the line is like that because of two factors. You see the 40 next to Santos' name, and you see the 10-0 next to Roman's name. But if you just take a look at both of them in some tape study, man, you'll see that Santos has the advantage everywhere. Roman just looks so sloppy in there. I like that. Give me Santos. All right. Take a look at the next fight. This one is going to be a fun one. We have Makwan, Amirkhani, Mr. Finland. And he's taking on Danny the Hatchet Henry. So we'll start with Makwan Amirkhani. He's 15-4, 5-2 in the UFC. He's 31 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. He trains in SBG Ireland. Some fighters that train there, Gunnar Nelson, Bracketona, James Gallagher, Connor used to train there. I don't know if he does anymore. Makwan is 2-2 in his last 4, with wins over Chris Fishgold and Jason Knight. Makwan's only 2 losses were against top talent like Shane Burgos and Arnold Allen. Both those fights were just gritty dog fights, and Makwan was game in both those fights. What Makwan does well, he throws nice right hooks and counters with nice uppercuts. He extends his right hand when he feels loose and will threaten with takedowns and will look for submissions. When he's in control, he will try to play the psychological games during the fight, like he did with Jason Knight. Makwan also recovers really, really well when he gets stunned or dropped. Makwan has a nice right jab that he'll pop, and he has great survivability. Man, go watch the Jason Knight or the Shane Burgos fight. The guy recovers like crazy. It's ridiculous. What Makwan has to work on. When Makwan throws the right hook, he exposes his left side. He's susceptible to uppercuts, front kicks to shins, and doesn't check many leg kicks. Makwan will gas himself early in the fight if he tries to do too much. And he will shoot for sloppy takedowns if his opponent is getting the upper hand on the feet. Makwan can get backed up into the cage, and that doesn't really look too good on the judges' eyes. Let's take a look at Danny Henry. He's 12-3 MMA, 2-1 in the UFC. He's 31 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 73-inch reach. Henry is coming off a 1.5-year layoff. He trains with Stevie Ray. His only loss in the UFC was to a top guy named Dan Ige. He's fighting Calvin Kattar. Henry has never fought any UFC fight outside of Europe. He's got wins over Hakeem Dawodu and Daniel Timur. I don't rate the Timur win very high, but the Hakeem Dawodu win was a big one for him. What Henry does well, he fights long with his hands up high. He throws decent body kicks. He throws uppercuts occasionally and searches for submissions when he hurts his opponent or gets them down. He shows to have some pop in his hands when he dropped Hakeem Dawodu. Henry needs to work on his strikes because they can be telegraphed. His striking is just kind of slow. He drops his left hand when throwing the body kick, which can be dangerous to getting countered. Henry doesn't show much urgency to get up from his back, and it showed against Timur. Henry isn't very strong either. Aside from the Dewada win, I wasn't too impressed from what I saw. So my prediction overall, I think this fight is a great fight for Makwan. He just needs to be careful with Henry's uppercuts, and he needs to be careful tiring himself out, which would allow Henry to take control on the mat. I feel Makwan has the advantage everywhere, standing or on the ground. I like Makwan to get the job done here. Excuse me. So let's take a look at what you guys think. 80% of you say Makwan Amirkhani. 20% say Henry. I have to agree with that. The line. Here we go. Where are you? Here we go. Plus 175, plus 150, plus 180 for Danny Henry. Makwan Amirkhani, minus 210, minus 192, minus 190. So you're getting a 2-1 on Makwan. And I think that's worthy throwing in a parlay. The guy has the advantage everywhere it goes. He only loses to top guys. So I like that. Give me Makwan. All right. Next fight. Don't blink. This welterweight bout is going to be a banger. We have Elizeu Capoeira Zaleski versus Muslim King of Kung Fu Salikhov. We're going to take a look at Elizeu Zaleski. He's 22-6 MMA, 8-2 UFC, 33 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. He's a veteran with some solid wins over decent competition like Omari Akhmedov, Lyman Good, Max Griffin, Sean Strickland, and most recently, Alexei Konchenko. What Zaleski does well, he's fast and powerful. He moves well by switching stances often, and he has nice head movement. Zaleski has good defense on the ground, and the guy doesn't panic, if he gets into trouble. He doesn't show signs of slowing down. Zaleski likes to establish control of the cage while throwing occasional spinning kicks, overhand rights, and 1-2s to the body. Zaleski has nice body kicks and will show more aggressiveness if he feels he's losing the fight. He will occasionally throw jumping knees and switch stances often occasionally to get the takedown and threaten with submissions of his own. This guy's recovery rate is incredible. What Zaleski needs to work on, the guy can get hit. He was dropped twice by Max Griffin and hurt on multiple occasions against Jing Liang before getting TKO'd. Zaleski can get hit clean by elbows in the clinch and can be susceptible to head strikes. All right, let's take a look at Muslim Salikhov. He's 16-2 MMA, 3-1 UFC, 36 years old, 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. He trains, in the same gym as Askar Askarov in Russia. He's on a 3-fight win streak, but that 3-fight win streak was against lower-level competition, like Ricky Rainey, Nordine Taleb, Laureano Staropoli. Not on Elizeu's level. Let's see what Zaleski does well at. He's basically a mirror image of Elizeu. Spinning back fists, spinning body kicks, spinning head kicks. He likes to establish the center of the cage. He doesn't back up. He throws wide left hooks to the body, and he's good at catching low kicks, and he isn't afraid to shoot for takedowns. What he needs to work on, he keeps his left hand a little bit low, and that leaves an opening to get head kicked. And that's something to look out for when Elizeu Zaleski's trying to kick your head off. My prediction for this fight, like I said, this is a mirror matchup, and this is going to be a damn fun one. On one hand, we have Zaleski. He's the UFC vet that fought higher opposition, but he has taken significantly more damage. And on the other side, we have Salikhov, who really hasn't beaten anyone noteworthy, but at the same time, he hasn't taken as much punishment as Zaleski has. I feel Zaleski will be slightly the faster of the two, but Salikhov might be the more durable. This fight will be really close, but I'll ever so slightly edge Zaleski. This is Salikhov's biggest test to date. Let's see how he fares. So on Tapology, you guys have 33% for Zaleski, wow, and 67% for Salikhov. Okay, let's take a look at some line. Where are they? minus plus 110, minus 130, minus 105, minus 125. Okay, so it's pretty even, pretty even. If you're willing to bet this fight, I like Elizeu Zaleski. But it's gonna be a close fight. It's gonna be a fun one too. Don't miss it. All right. So we are moving on to the main event of the prelims. We got a couple of big boys headlining in the light heavyweight division. We have Volkan, no time Oezdemir, taking on Jiri, Denisa Prochazka. So let's start with Volkan Oezdemir. He's 17-4 MMA, 5-3 UFC. He's 30 years old. He's 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. He's 3-3 in his last 6, but currently he's riding a 2-fight win streak over Alexander Rakic and Ilir Latifi. He had a razor close fight against Dominic Reyes, and prior to that was finished by both Cormier and Smith by submission. Well, Volkan does well. I like that he keeps his hands high for the most part. He throws primarily to the head, and he has nice leg kicks. Volkan also has decent takedown defense of his own and will do his best to get right back up if taken down. Volkan, has good takedowns of his own, and you can't forget about his power. Well, Volkan has to work on. Like I mentioned, just a minute ago, he keeps his hands up for the most part. But when that third round hits, his hands are just dropped, and he gets hit. He has a tendency to gas out after the first 10 minutes. Volkan will get controlled by stronger wrestlers, and when winging his right hand, will typically expose his left side to get countered clean. Reyes and Smith had success with that. Now let's take a look at Jiri. He's 26, 3-1 MMA. He's making his UFC debut. He's 27 years old, 6'3", with a reach not listed. So what sticks out to me about this guy? If you look at his level of competition, it's like just so low. We're looking at CB Holloway, no longer in the UFC, not really relevant. Fabio Maldonado, the last time we saw this guy was 2013. Muhammad Lawal, the guy's 40 now. That's just bad. Also, it's his UFC debut. But let's talk about what we like from him. Basically, he throws a left jab to keep his opponent at a distance. He fights long and shows nice KO power. Jiri moves well, and he looks really light on his feet. He also can go 3 rounds without much problem. What he needs to work on, Jiri doesn't really check leg kicks. He keeps his hands super low at times and has a hard time keeping control of his opponent's back. When he throws his combos, his head ends up wide open to get countered. Jiri can get controlled on the mat by stronger wrestlers and doesn't seem to have much answers trying to get back up to his feet. My prediction of the fight, Jiri is a younger prospect who had his way against old and non-UFC caliber fighters. He's coming in here fighting a top 10 light heavyweight, don't forget that, for his debut. I can see Volkan doing well in the first 2 rounds, but if it does go to a third, just be wary that Jiri could catch him with Volkan's hands being low at the 3rd round. I like Volkan to get the job done here. I don't see Jiri going anywhere if he loses. The UFC will probably just feed him scraps from the top 30. Okay, let's take a look at Tapology. Volkan Oezdemir, 61%. Jiri, 39%. I agree with that. And let's take a look at the line. Here we go. Plus 140, plus 140, plus 138 for Jiri. Volkan, minus 160, minus 176, minus 170. I like that line for Volkan. You can play it straight or throw him in a parlay. The line is close because you see a guy like Jiri with a 26-3 record. And the guy has power and he's big. But you got to realize he's coming in on a debut against a top 10 light heavyweight, and his competition is just not even close to Volkan's. I like Volkan here. All right. So we're going to start off the main card of the prelims. We have Amanda Ribas taking on Paige VanZant. Okay. So Paige, 12 gauge VanZant versus Amanda Ribas. We can call her the Soldier of God. Paige VanZant, she's 8-4 MMA, 5-3 UFC. She's 26 years old, 5'4" with a 65-inch reach. VanZant is coming in to this being away for a year and a half. Outside the UFC, she was just occupying herself with all kinds of things. Her last win was against Rachel Ostovich. What VanZant does well, this chick is always game. She's durable. She has nice submissions, and she throws nice switch kicks. She primarily has wins over lower-level girls of her weight division. VanZant shows decent striking, strong top and back control. What VanZant needs to work on is her get-up game. You know, if she's not the one in control, she has problems getting up. Jessica Rose Clark had a lot of success keeping her down on the mat, and Ostovich was doing fairly well until she got caught by the submission. Let's take a look at Amanda Ribas. She's 9-1 MMA, 3-0 in the UFC. She's 26 years old, 5'4" with a 66-inch reach. Ribas is undefeated in the UFC with some solid wins over Mackenzie Dern, Randa Marcos, and Emily Whitmire. She's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Ribas, she's good. She's solid all around. She can throw a ton of volume and not show signs of being tired. Ribas uses good range and angles to find her jab. She also works the body well. What Ribas needs to work on, in her fight against Whitmire, she was being controlled on the mat. She had no answers trying to get up. She wasn't in danger of being submitted or anything, but she was just having a hard time getting up. To my prediction, I mean, this feels like a sit-up fight for Ribas to kick VanZant out of the UFC. You know, Ribas has the advantage basically anywhere this fight goes. Kind of funny enough, these two girls have the same weaknesses. So it's basically whoever gets the other on the ground first will establish that huge lead. Ribas should take care of VanZant without any issues. Basically, we'll see in Bellator, Paige. Take a look at what you guys think. 12% for Paige VanZant and 88% for Amanda Ribas. Pretty wide, but I have to agree. Let's take a look at the lines. Woo! Wow, minus 900, minus 850 for Amanda Ribas. And Paige VanZant, plus 600, plus 645. That's crazy. That's too wide. You know, you can. I mean, if you're betting 900 on a female fighter, you got to bet Amanda Nunes against Felicia Spencer, but you can't do that here. Like, VanZant is still game, you know, so it's basically a dog or pass if you're betting it. I wouldn't throw Ribas in a parlay. I definitely wouldn't bet her straight. But I'm still going to pick Ribas to win the fight. Okay. All right. Up next, we have two badass chicks here. We have Jessica Bata Estaca Andrade versus Thug Rose Namajunas. All right, so we'll start off with Jessica Andrade. She's 20-7 MMA, 11-5 in the UFC. She's 28 years old, 5'1" with a 62-inch reach. Andrade is a UFC veteran and the former strawweight champ. These two ladies have met not so long ago, coming off a 1-year layoff after losing her title to Weili Zhang. What Andrade does well, I mean, this girl's powerful. She's a mini pit bull waiting to throw your ass up in the air and to hit you with a brick. You know, she has powerful slams. That's how she beat Rose the first time. She slammed and KO'd her. She has strong top control, and she loves to stalk her opponents. What Andrade needs to work on, you know, I don't like that Andrade is okay at taking a shot to give a shot. She loves being in those dogfights. She doesn't really have much head movement. She was getting tagged hard by Claudia, Rose, Joanna, Weili. She has to extend her reach to land shots, which leaves herself open. Andrade can be exposed on the mat as she was previously submitted in her career by Raquel Pennington and Marion Renault. All right, so let's take a look at Rose Namajunas, 9-4 MMA, 6-3 UFC. She's 28 years old, 5'5", with a 65-inch reach. The former strawweight champ hasn't fought since losing it to her opponent, Jessica Andrade. One thing to note here, if you're betting on Rose, you gotta wonder what her state of mind could be like. That would make me a little bit nervous, especially getting, knocked out by the woman that you're fighting this Saturday. We don't know where her head's at. But basically what Rose does well, she uses her reach really well and has super quick jabs. She has a very good head movement and is light on her feet, very technical, and has a nice counter left hook. She shows exceptional cardio and stamina. She works hard from bottom and tries to threaten with submissions. Basically, there's not much that she needs to work on. She does get taken down by stronger girls, but she still is working, which I like. Basically, my prediction, the layoff and her mental state is a concern here. We just don't know how well she'll perform against Andrade after knowing what happened the first time. But if we're going to disregard that, and I'll probably just disregard that, I don't see how this fight goes any different from the first time they fought. Rose was landing the crisper, cleaner shots, tagging Andrade from a distance. We all know Andrade would want to slam her again or knock her down, but I see Rose doing a good job defending and threatening with submissions, maybe even more this time, more of an output if she does get held down. I don't see Rose getting slam KO'd this time. Give me Thug Rose. And you guys on Tapology, wow, 80% of you say Rose Namajunas and 20% say Jessica Andrade. That's a big percentage. Let's take a look at the odds here. Plus 180, plus 170, plus 165 for Andrade. Rose, minus 220, minus 204, minus 200. If you can get Rose at like minus 170, minus 180, I think there's value there. Throwing her in a parlay or playing her straight. I wouldn't take her at 2-1. But I'm still going to go with Rose Namajunas. All right. So the next fight, we have the battle, new school versus old school for the vacant bantamweight championship. We have Petr No Mercy Yan versus Jose Aldo. Woo! Petr Yan, 14-1 MMA, 6-0 in the UFC. He's 27 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. You have to just flat out say it. This is by far the toughest opponent that Yan has to date. He does have notable wins over Jimmy Rivera, John Dodson, and most recently Uriah Faber, but those guys are not on the same level as Aldo. And just a fun fact, Yan has over 70 amateur boxing matches. It's crazy. What Yan does well, he has power, and he loves stalking his opponents. He throws occasional body kicks, and he has good takedown defense. Yan switches his stances often, and he is a threat from both stances. What Yan has to work on, he will take a shot to give a shot. He gets in these wild exchanges, and that made him look human against Rivera and Dodson. Rivera had some moments where he tagged him and Dodson dropped him. His heavy right hand can overextend a bit, leaving him exposed for a counter shot. Let's take a look at Jose Aldo, 28-6 MMA, 10-5 in the UFC. He's 33 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. The guy is the legend of the game, former king of the featherweights. At one point, he had wins over Edgar, Mendez, Lamas, Korean Zombie, the list goes on. This will be his second fight at bantamweight. His last fight was against Marlon Moraes, and that was a super close fight. What he does well, basically takes the center of the cage and establishes pressure. He picks his shots super carefully and is like a sniper. When his opponent has openings and they present himself to Aldo, like he'll snipe those shots. He seems to be taking shots fairly well. I mean, we saw it in the Marlon Moraes fight. He dropped all that weight. That was a concern that a lot of us were having. But he took those shots pretty well. Aldo also throws hard, solid body shots, and he has exceptional takedown defense. What Aldo has to work on, I mean, we're looking at fights from past and heavyweight, I mean not heavyweight, featherweight, like fighters from Max Holloway, Volkanovski, it was those volume type fighters. He was dropped and on several occasions, knocked out by Conor, dropped by Mendes, hurt and dropped by Holloway. He doesn't seem to be throwing his patented leg kicks anymore. Like, we don't see that. And he does look fairly drained, making the cut down to 135. So, guessing from last fight, we can expect him to be okay, but still, that's a big weight cut. He was having problems cutting to 145. Here's my prediction. Basically, neither guy will let the other take control of the octagon. These guys are gonna just stand and bang in front of each other. This will be fireworks from the first round to however long it goes. Jan hasn't faced the quality Aldo has, but in turn, he's taken less damage than Aldo. I feel like Aldo is more technical and may have the edge if it goes all 5. Jan quite possibly has the edge in durability, but is now facing a fighter who may be slightly bigger than him. If this were at featherweight, I lean Aldo, obviously, but it's at 135. Yes, Aldo looked good against Moraes, but I simply can't trust to put my money on Aldo, who's making that drastic weight cut against a dangerous killer like Jan. I can see Aldo possibly edging the scorecards until Jan catches him with something big. My pick is Petr Yan to become the new bantamweight champion. All right, so let's see on Tapology, 76% are for Petr Yan and 24% Jose Aldo. I think it could be closer than that. Let's take a look. Jose Aldo plus 185, plus 200, plus 179, plus 185. Petr Yan minus 225, minus 250, minus 230. I mean, I wouldn't bet Petr Yan here. I would say dog or pass. Aldo looked good in his last fight. Aldo was still a killer. Aldo has the experience. Petr Yan, he could definitely catch Aldo. I don't want to risk 225, 250. I would take Petr Yan if it was minus 180. But, my pick is still going to be Petr Yan to win this fight. All right. We are moving, guys, to co-main event time, the rematch between the current featherweight champ and the former featherweight champ. We have Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus Max Blessed Holloway. I'm not going to go too much into this one. This one's pretty straightforward. After watching their last fight, I can make pretty simple assumptions. But we'll start off with Volkanovski. He's 21-1 MMA, 8-0 in the UFC. He's 31 years old, 5'6" with a 71.5-inch reach. He's the current featherweight champ. He has some solid wins over Jose Aldo, Chad Mendes, and the former champion who he's fighting now, Max Holloway. If any of you guys didn't know this, he used to compete in rugby, and he used to weigh over 200 pounds. Now he's at 145. I mean, if you see the size of this guy's legs, wow, So what he does well, he throws strong leg kicks. I mean, you saw that in the first fight. Holloway's legs were getting beaten up bad. He moves well in and out, and he uses his leg kicks to set up his right hand. Alex has good top control and ground and pound when he gets on top. He doesn't seem to have really issues going the full 5. I know Holloway was turning it up in the 5th round. Volk was looking a little bit tired, but he can still go the full 5 strong. What he needs to work on, I mean, he can't leave himself open after throwing the leg kicks. Holloway was later in the fight. He was tagging Volk later in the fight when he was throwing his leg kicks. They were getting a little bit slower. He just can't leave himself open to get tagged. All right, let's take a look at Max Holloway, 21-5 MMA, 17-5 UFC, 28 years old, 5'11" with a 69-inch reach. He's the former featherweight champ, and he has notable wins over Jose Aldo twice, Brian Ortega. I mean, the list goes on. He does well. Holloway has a real nice jab, nice body kicks. He has a granite chin, extremely durable, excellent cardio and stamina. The guy is almost a complete package, and he has great takedown defense. What he has to work on, just in his last fight against Volk, man, he wasn't checking any leg kicks. Max relies on his footwork and mobility to set up his combinations, but Volk was doing a great job neutralizing that and forcing Max to switch stances. Here's my prediction. It's fairly straightforward. Max needs to check and neutralize Volk's leg kicks. If he doesn't, it's just going to be a repeat of the first fight. Max was getting the better of the exchanges later in the fight as Volk was slowly tiring, but it was just too little too late. Can I confidently say Max will make those adjustments? Well, no, but I'm willing to take a shot on the former champ, looking back at his first fight with Volkanovski and making those necessary adjustments. Give me Max Holloway to take back his featherweight championship. Let's take a look. Tapology, Volkanovski, wow, 66% of you. And then 34% for Max Holloway. Woo, so let's take a look. Minus 230 for Volkanovski, minus 250, minus 240. Max Holloway, plus 190, plus 180, plus 175. Holy cow. I mean, the value is on Max Holloway. If you're playing Volk at 2-1 favorite, I mean, you got to be sweating the whole time. I would love to take a shot on Max Holloway at plus 190. If I can get him at plus 200 or better, that's great value. So it's a dog or pass situation, and I'm going with Max Holloway to get that W and regain the featherweight title. All right, there we go. Main event time, baby. The Nigerian Nightmare versus Street Jesus. Again, huge props to Masvidal for stepping in this fight on week's notice. I'm going to break this one down a little bit more extensively. So, we're going to start off with the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman. He's 16-1 MMA, 11-0 UFC. He's 33 years old, 6 feet tall, 76-inch reach. He's the current welterweight champion. Usman's game is evolving. We see that. He's feeling more and more comfortable striking, and it's showing in his last title defense against the American hero Colby Covington. I mean, neither man attempted a takedown. Usman looked good. He looked sloppy, but he still looked good with the striking and eventually got the finish. Usman is elite when it comes to wrestling and top control. That's how he was able to beat the former champion Tyron Woodley, Rafael dos Anjos, and Emil Mech. Usman, is effective, only using his striking against opponents that aren't really strikers first, like Colby and Maia. In the Colby fight, Usman was getting tagged periodically, and it would be dangerous to mess around your striking against someone like Masvidal. So Usman's got to watch out. Don't fall in love with your striking against a guy like Masvidal. Let's take a look at Jorge. He's 35 and 13 MMA, 12 and 6 UFC. He's 35 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach. Jorge's coming off a win over Nate Diaz for the BMF title. I'm sorry, guys, I don't count that as a real title. He outstruck and outgrappled Diaz for the win. Prior to that, the 2-second flying knee knockout over Ben Askren. I know Askren doesn't have any striking, but it would have been just a little bit easier to predict this matchup if we saw how Masvidal would have handled Askren's relentless wrestling. And prior to that, the knockout over Darren Till in London, that was pretty cool. Masvidal did struggle finding his timing and range against Wonder Boy, but that's kind of irrelevant here. What we can take away was probably the performance against Maia. Masvidal struggled to get Maia off his back. I feel, Usman is stronger than Maia, so if Usman gets Masvidal's back, it could be bad news. So Masvidal would need to avoid getting into clinch positions or giving up his back. All right, so my prediction for this, as exciting as this fight may be, I see it going two ways. Masvidal knocking out Usman, or Usman getting on top and grinding out Masvidal. Now, I believe Masvidal's conditioning and cardio may be better than Usman's if it gets to like rounds 4 or 5. But both fighters need to stick to their strengths. Masvidal has been taken down in the past by smaller fighters. And while momentum is a very real thing in the sport, I do see Usman getting periods of top control and spamming the takedowns. Adding the short notice into play, this isn't a very good matchup for Masvidal, honestly. In my heart, I would love to see Masvidal win, but I just don't see that playing out. I've got Usman to just wrestle, to grind this, and to retain his welterweight title. Honestly, this doesn't hurt Masvidal at all. He's coming in on short notice. He's saving the card. If he loses, he can say, I came in on short notice. And if he wins, well, even bigger props to him. All right, let's take a look at Tapology. 65% say Usman, 35% say Masvidal. I like it. And let's take a look at the odds. Here we go. 245 plus 245 plus 201 plus 214 plus 252 for Masvidal. Kamaru Usman minus 290, minus 250, minus 280. That's not too bad. It's closer than I thought it would be. I thought Usman would be like a minus 350. If you're really confident in Kamaru, this is a good matchup. And if you're really confident in him, you can throw him in a parlay. But I'm going to take Usman to retain his belt. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I apologize. My throat has been really dry all day, but I wanted to get this video out early for you guys. I'll be leaving the timestamps down below in the description. Please hit that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. I did a lot of tape study for this, and I truly enjoyed doing this, and I would love to put out more content for you guys. Hit that subscribe button if you liked what you listened to. I will be posting on Friday a post weigh-ins and a prop play video for this card, and I will be doing that after every single prediction video that I do, so please tune in for that. All right, guys, I appreciate your time and enjoy the fights. Take care.